And Jay Jacobs is the State Democratic Party chairman. He is joining us from Nassau County tonight. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. How are you?
Very well, Liz. Thanks for having me.
Well, last night was kind of a surprise. It didn't go entirely the way you wanted it to. Your candidate for State Attorney General, Kathleen Rice, failed to make the cut.
Well, that's true. She came 2 percentage points shy of doing it, but we've got a great candidate in Eric Schneiderman. And I spoke with him last night, and we're looking forward to working with him to make sure he's elected the next Attorney General.
So are you concerned in that race in particular? We haven't yet heard from Andrew Cuomo. I'm just curious if you know if Andrew Cuomo is going to be endorsing Eric Schneiderman. There was some feeling that maybe Kathleen Rice was the favorite and not Eric Schneiderman.
Well, now that Eric Schneiderman is on our ticket, I know that he'll work very well with Andrew Cuomo, and the same in reverse, and they're going to make a very strong ticket, along with Tom DiNapoli and Mayor Duffy. So it's going to be a full-fledged effort, and everybody's going to work together very well.
But have you spoken to Andrew Cuomo? Because, you know, he has not endorsed Tom DiNapoli, actually, now that you bring it up, because he's involved in a pay-to-play investigation that involves the state pension funds. So I'm curious if you believe that he eventually will come around on Tom DiNapoli, and if and when he might endorse Eric Schneiderman.
Well, again, I don't know the timing of exactly how it's going to work. I know that Andrew Cuomo is going to run a very strong campaign. I'm sure that the whole ticket will have the support that it needs. And as to the timing of these kinds of things, I don't know, and I really haven't asked him about that.
Do you think that the Attorney General, I mean, at one point we thought that he might actually weigh in on picking a favorite before the primary for the 5-person primary to replace him, and he didn't in the end, and it was actually so close. It was closer than most people thought it would be, as just a few percentage points, as you noted. Had Andrew Cuomo weighed in, do you think he could have pushed Kathleen Rice over to victory?
Well, you know, Andrew Cuomo was very popular, but I think he did the right thing, and I think I think it was politically very smart. I think it was the right thing to do. I think that even given the results, the fact as to how close it was, he understood he wanted to let the voters make that decision. And so to weigh in, you know, you'll get criticism one way, criticism the other. Others would say that he shouldn't. So I think he did the right thing, and I think we've got a good result. Fortunately for the Democrats, we had 5 outstanding candidates. And while I, as a Nassau County chair, of course, had my favorite, I liked each and every one of the others. I've spoken to most of them. I'm reaching out to all of them. And, you know, we're looking forward to working with Eric Schneiderman.
You know, just today, actually, one of your fellow Democrats, former New York City Mayor Ed Koch, chose to endorse the Staten Island DA, Dan Donovan. He's the Republican candidate. What was your response to that?
Well, I think that's a mistake. I don't always agree with what the mayor the mayor does. I appreciate and respect very much his initiative on reform. I think that you know, our candidates in the Democratic Party, particularly at the top of the ticket, are committed to reform. Andrew Cuomo's reform message is one that Eric Schneiderman has signed on to and has endorsed. I think that is the program that will make the difference up in Albany that we need. And you have Republicans, Democrats, and independents all coming aboard Andrew Cuomo's reform package. So, you know, I think that the mayor perhaps wants to be controversial, and I think that you know, it's appropriate, and I respect him very much so, but I disagree with him.
Do you think, you know, you just mentioned this issue of reform, and certainly that is the buzzword and everybody is talking about it, including Carl Paladino, who is now the official candidate of the Republicans. You once suggested that he perhaps is not altogether sane. Do you still believe that?
Well, I don't know about, I'm not going to comment on his sanity. What I will tell you is that some of the things that he says are insane. But, you know, that's just the nature. He calls it blunt. I call it insensitive. I call it just bad. I think it's bad form. I think what he's doing is so divisive and tearing people apart. And I think the people of the state of New York are going to hear what he has to say. You know, he can be angry all he likes. We're all angry. Democrats are angry, too. Everyone wants change. But you take a look at the character of Andrew Cuomo, and you take a look at his experience, his message, his vision, and you contrast that with Carl Paladino and the harsh, negative things that he has said, and the characterizations, the fact that he writes off major parts of our state. You know, you want to be governor of the state of New York? I can say this to Carl Palladino. You don't have the luxury of representing only the people you like or the people who are like you. You have to represent everybody in every part of the state, and he's failed to indicate in any way that he would do that. So I think he's unfit to be our governor.
You know, Chairman, I was just reminded of what the statement was. It was in connection to Carl Palladino sending a duck to hound Rick Lazio, at the risk of mixing my metaphors there, for the failure to debate. Your specific words were, Carl Palladino sends a duck to a political event. Of course, Palladino's a quack.
Well, you know, sometimes you know, we can all be clever, I guess, at some point. But I think the fact is that everything that he says, if you listen to him, I mean, the voters only need to listen to what Carl Palladino says, and they will disqualify him on their own.
You know, the thing is, though, that a lot of people thought that maybe it wasn't a bright idea for Rick Lazio, a little Monday morning quarterbacking, if you will, to refuse to debate Palladino because he didn't get to make that contrast, and instead Carl Palladino got to frame the debate himself. It's now been quite a while since the primary last night. We haven't heard anything from Andrew Cuomo. Do you believe that he should debate Carl Palladino, and do you think he will?
Well, first of all, you say it's been quite a while. I don't think we've gone 24 hours.
It's like an eon in political time, Chairman. I mean, we've known,
I see.
you know.
Oh, I get you.
It's a 24-hour news cycle.
A bit of time. I get you. Well, I'll tell you this. I have every confidence that Andrew Cuomo is going to, and his team and the Democratic team are going to take a look at what the best way is to address Carl Palladino, and at the right time, you know, they'll determine that and they'll let everybody know. But I think within 24 hours is a bit much to ask for that.
Well, you put out a statement yourself, and it's interesting because you questioned the wisdom of the voters in saying that they picked Palladino. Now, we're talking about Republicans, of course. This is not your own party. But they picked Carl Palladino because they were mad as hell, which you say that many people are, but that perhaps they are misguided in believing that he's actually anti-Albany because he has a cozy relationship with politicians. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, that's true. There's a hypocrisy in Carl Palladino's message. And every voter ought to understand it, because I think, again, it goes to disqualify him. It's one thing to say that you're against government, you're going to cut government, taxpayer waste, and the mess up in Albany. There's nothing wrong with saying that. But when the person who's saying it, Carl Palladino is this person, takes state contracts that make up a large portion of his income because he rents space, leases space to the state of New York, and has these very lucrative contracts and benefits, all the while giving a lot of campaign contributions to the very people who might be the ones who are giving him those contracts. I don't know how you're able to call anybody on the issue of reform or what's wrong in Albany. He is the poster child of what is wrong in Albany. A businessman who's out there making a lot of money off the taxpayer, getting cozy contracts for leasing building space in buildings that he owns, while giving heavy campaign contributions to the very politicians who do it. I mean, that's exactly what's wrong.
So
and
wait,
he's telling someone else what to do?
He says, actually, that Andrew Cuomo's a product of Albany. You say that he's benefiting from Albany. So what we're going to see now in the general election is one guy trying to out-Albany another?
Well, I mean, in fairness, you know, Carl Palladino can attack Andrew Cuomo. You know what Andrew Cuomo's sin has been? And this is a legitimate attack on Andrew Cuomo. He's been a dedicated public servant. He has worked in government. He was Secretary of HUD. He's put people in houses. He's cared for people who are the unfortunate in our society. And he's worked as Attorney General so hard to make sure that Wall Street plays fair with our rules. That's the hit that Carl Palladino is trying to lay on Andrew Cuomo. And you know something? You know, I hope that one sticks. But I'll tell you, it doesn't compare to the fact you've got Carl Palladino, who's up there in Buffalo, collecting rent checks every month from the state of New York, from the taxpayers of the state of New York, for cozy leases that he's gotten after giving campaign cash to the politicians.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, but I want to thank you very much. I'm sure we're going to be hearing a lot more from you as this race gets heated. Thank you so much, Jay Jacobs, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.